Hello crafty friends! Today I'm back with this fun holiday card using Stamps and Dice by Sunny Studio Stamps. First, I started by stamping out all of my images onto Bristol smooth cardstock, and I'm coloring them in using Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. First, I'm using the color 902, and I'm just blending that out with a colorless blender, just to color the dark areas of this adorable little penguin. Just blending that out using a piece of scratch cardstock just to clean off the brush nib. Then for the lighter parts of the face, I'm using the color 97 just to add a little bit of definition there. I wanted to keep it mostly white. Adding a little bit of the 200 for blush. Just blending that out with a blender. And then I'm also going in with pale orange, the 54 on the beak, because I didn't want that to, stand out as like harsh orange. Just intensifying the cheeks a little bit more. Then for the big wreath, I'm going in with the color 400, which I believe is called marine green, which is like a teal shade of green, which is super pretty. And I'm just coloring in all the leaves, all the little nooks and crannies, which took me a while. Just making sure that I only get the leaves and not the flowers and the berries. Then I'm blending that out with the colorless blender. Using a scratch piece of paper just to wipe off the tip of my colorless blender so that I don't pull in too much of the dark pigment. I'm just loosening up the pigment of the marine green a little bit, not pulling the color out all the way. Just going over all the areas, then cleaning off the tip of the brush, and then going over the lightest area, just so that I have a nice transition. Otherwise, all of the leaves would have kind of been too dark green for me. Just going over everything all the while, wiping off the tip of my brush. By the way, as my scratch paper, I also use Bristol smooth paper, usually from the colored images, just like the back of them, so that I don't waste the Bristol since it's expensive. But I did use like scratch paper before, and that just kind of messed with the nib of the brush, so I did go in with some green, but I didn't like the way it looks, and I realized that the leaves that were part of the poinsettia weren't actually leaves, so yeah, I'm gonna go over that with red. And I'm also going over with the number 48 over all of the leaves just to bring more of a, yeah, what is it called, like a pistachio color to them, so that they're like a teal greenish mix. And then I'm bringing in 260 and 29 on the poinsettias, also going over the leaves that I accidentally colored green, but I'm just going over with dark red, so it's fine. And then going over everything with a 29 as well. First, coloring the back leaves. And then blending that out, then also doing the other ones, and I'm skipping the 260 for the top layer so that the top flower layers are a bit lighter. And then I'm just blending that out with a colorless blender. And this just creates a little bit of variation in the red shades, since the areas are quite small. Also blending out the bow. For the berries, I'm adding 230 to those for like an, what is it called? Like a more dull pink. It looks a little bit like Victorian velvet from the Distress Oxide or Incline, if you're familiar with that color. Just going in with a little bit more. Then for my reindeer, I'm going in with 65. And I'm not showing the coloring of the mouse because I'm using the exact same shades for the mouse. And then I'm blending that out with 72. And then finally 73 to blend everything together. For the face of the reindeer, I'm just using the 72 again, and then blending that out with 64. And going over it again with 73. For the nose of the reindeer, I'm just coloring that in straight up with the 65. And I'm using 200 for the insides of the ears and for the cheek. Then I'm using the same red shades I used in the wreath for my sleigh, and that is the 260 and the 29. Just going over the darkest area, pulling the darkest shade out a little bit further with the 29, adding quite a bit of pigment so that only the middle area would be lightest, and then I'm blending that out with a colorless blender. In hindsight, if you are using Zig markers or any kind of watercolor markers, I would always recommend coloring the red area last, because I actually accidentally pulled a little bit of the red when I was coloring the gold rim of the sleigh, so next time I will try to color the red parts last. Again, going in with a 230, which is like an off pink. And I'm blending that out with a colorless blender. I needed quite a bit more pigment on there, so I'm just adding a lot more of the 260. It looks a bit brownish when you first put it on, but when you blend it out, it's just this really nice dusky pink. Then I'm going in with the number 50 for the sleigh. Then adding a little bit of the 72 just to add like a golden hue. And then I'm blending that out with a colorless blender, and this is where I'm accidentally pulling in a little bit too much of the red in the center there. You can't see it too much in the end, but it was still kind of bugging me. For my background, I'm ink blending some Salvaged Patina in the center of my background panel. This is A2 sized. Just blending the color down from the top. Making sure I leave a little bit of a light area in the center. Then I'm bringing in Peacock feathers just to intensify the color. I wiped off my brush quickly in between so that I could blend the Salvaged Patina and the Peacock feathers without adding more pigment. Then to darken it up, I'm going over it with chipped sapphire. Going over the chipped sapphire again with the peacock feathers to make it less of a true blue and more of a like teal kind of blue. Again, wiping off my brush and then adding more Salvaged Patina to the same brush and going over the transition area. And then I'm darkening up the edge with black soot. Just going over everything, blending it out. Then I'm adding some white splatters for a snowy look to my background. And I'm adding a lot of those. Then I'm using a sentiment, the Merry Christmas from the Holiday Express, and I'm just heat embossing that in white onto black cardstock. I'm just using a little brush to clean off any of the little stray bits of embossing powder. Off to the side, my heat gun is already getting nice and hot. I accidentally took off a little bit of the M there, so I just had to add some more heat embossing, then going in with a brush again. And once it's nice and clean, I'm just using my heat tool to melt the embossing powder. Just using some reverse tweezers so I don't burn my hands. And now it's finally time to assemble my card. I'm just adding some liquid glue to the background and I'm adding it to an A2 size card base. I always like using liquid glue for that so I can just move it if I need to so that I don't accidentally adhere it down crooked. Also adding liquid glue to my snowy hill. And then I'm just fiddling around with the placement of my critters. I added the reindeer into the center of the wreath. And as you can see, I added the little mouse into the present. And of course I had to give him antlers because, you know, he wants to join the party with the reindeer. So it's like a crisp mouse. Then I added the little penguin up top. And I also added Santa into the sleigh with some presents. And of course, the penguin has to have a little Santa hat because it's just adorable. Then I'm just filling up my scene with the lid of the Christmas present box. I'm sprinkling around some more of the Christmas presents just to make the scene nice and full. That little Christmas mouse just cracks me up. Just making sure that they're like nicely spread out. Then I added my sentiment strip with liquid glue, and just to fill up the background, I added some more of the Lacy Snowflakes. I cut them out of white glitter cardstock, and I'm just trimming off the excess at the top. I just glued down the snowflakes in the center so that they give some nice dimension because the edges kind of stand up a bit, which I really like. And that finishes off my card for today. Christmas cards are just my favorite to make, especially one with mice, in this case little reindeer mice. And I just had so much fun making this. Thank you so much for watching and have an amazing holiday season. Bye!